You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Football Show right here in SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Joined as always by Marc Wilson. Marc, how are we doing?
Fine, thanks Scott. Enjoyed a great weekend of football there. It was great stuff to watch.
Definitely. Don't have Shankers or Rory this week, but we're joined. We've roped in an old pal, Alan Kerr. Kerr's brilliant to welcome you back onto the show.
Thanks very much. Great to be here. Delighted.
How excited are you going to be with Wilson?
It's going to be great. There'll probably be a few jokes here that you will not get that we won't, but I'll be fine.
Brilliant. We've got a very special guest in this week's episode. I'm delighted to be joined by the presenter of Clyde Superscoreboard, Gordon Duncan. Gordon, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you onto the show. Thanks very much for coming on.
Well, delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
How have you been? How's everything been?
Good, yeah, can't complain, as the lad said. Good weekend of football, soaking it in, and you've managed to get me out of the bath time routine for my 4-month-old daughter, so this is good. I'd rather talk football than deal with the tantrums, but if you can hear the screaming then and you see me rushing away, it just means we've got an emergency, but I think we'll be good. I think we'll be fine.
Brilliant. We'll kick off with the playoff results that happened over the weekend. There was a few big results. Raith beat Dunfermline 2-0 to advance into the Premiership playoffs semi-final, where they will take on Dundee. Coven Airdrie 1-1 draw. Montrose beat Morton 2-1. Elgin 0, Edinburgh City 1. Stranraer 0, Dumbarton 0. And Kelty advanced to the Pyramid playoff final, where they'll play Brecon with a 4-1 win on Saturday against Brora, which was a 6-1 aggregate win. Wilson, what was the standout result out of those games?
Well, it certainly wasn't Elgin, as I'd backed them in the staff coupon at work, so it certainly wasn't them. I think you've got to look at Kelty Hearts, to be honest. I think they've had a bit of a raw deal the last couple of seasons, and that result for me makes a statement. I mean, I don't know if it shows the gap between, the Highland League and the Lowland League or whatever, but definitely Kelty Hearts deserve their shot at getting into League Two, and going by that performance at the weekend, they've got a fair chance of getting something against Brecon, I would imagine. Definitely. Gordon, what stood out to you? What was the result for that you would take away and what you think for next week?
I think I'd need to agree with that. The Kelty Brora one, the spotlight that's been placed on that playoff now because of all the politics and the drama that went on last season, it's incredible. I think, if you were to put somebody on the spot and say, who was in the League Two playoff 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago or 4 seasons ago, I'm not convinced many people would remember them, but there's been something about this Kelty and Brora quest to get into the SPFL and Brecon's clinging on for dear life. I think it's put a bit more of a spotlight on it. People are quite interested in it. And some of the calibre of player actually at that level now, you look at the guys that scored for Kelty, Nathan Austin, big among it, would almost certainly be a top-end championship striker, maybe even do a job at the lower end of the Premiership. You've got the Barry Ferguson factor. And like I say, probably mostly though down to the kind of politics from last summer. I think that one for me, I had a few wee personal biases in there. I was keeping an eye on Jim Duffy from with my Superscoreboard hat on to see if his Dumbarton side could do something they did not too badly. And do you know what? Raith play some brilliant football. Like, they are to watch. I think they've been definitely one of the best teams in the championship. So I was quite pleased for them. But it's a hell of an ask for that kind of 3rd or 4th place team in the championship to win that, then beat the 2nd place team, then beat the Premiership team. It's a slog, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. Kelso, what stood out to you, and do you fancy Kelty to beat Brecon?
I do. I was keeping an eye on that, and I think it's their time, if you like. As Wilson said there, they've pushed the last couple of years, and as Gordon said, the Barry Ferguson element for me, he's just a winner, isn't he? I think it's his time. But I was keeping an eye on the Morton result, obviously with Andy Mullen and Gus being there. Mm-hmm. Keeping an eye on that, and I've watched them against Hearts at Capello and the Motherwell game, and I've been impressed with them. Hard to beat, but although didn't go doing too well yesterday, did it? So that was mainly keeping an eye on the Morton game, just because of that factor.
Yeah, definitely. All the second legs take place on Tuesday and Wednesday, so we'll be keeping an eye on them. We'll move on to the 2 Scottish Cup semi-finals. Firstly, last night, Dundee United 0, Hibs 2. Brilliant performance, I thought, for Hibs. I thought the front three of Boyle, Nisbet and Doidge were really impressive. Obviously, Nisbet and Doidge get the goals. Gordon, how impressed were you with Hibs?
Yeah, I think that was always the case in the build-up, really, wasn't it? For Dundee United to have a chance, you kind of needed the front three to have a bit of an off day. I think that front three causes MD in the league problems, even Rangers and Celtic. Certainly the Dundee Uniteds. Obviously, there was a huge slice of luck. It was undeniably offside, the second goal. I don't even think it was a particularly difficult one for the assistant. I always like to give... I think as a country, we put far too much emphasis on marginal offsides. I think we get far too upset about them, and we forget about how hard it must be if guys are all kind of running at pace and crossing over and people trying to step up and all the rest of it. But that just wasn't one of them. It was very simple, and they got it wrong. Anyway, I still think Hibs were good for it. And like you mentioned, you've got Boyle. Arguably, is he the best player outside the Old Firm? Probably, or he would enter the discussion anyway. And by the way, Nisbet might be that as well. You're talking about a guy that's chapping on the door at the Euros. So yeah, I think the firepower just won in the end. I mean, in fairness, Dundee United have got firepower of their own, but Hibs are pretty well oiled, and I think they sort of lived up to their favourites tag for that one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Kelso, did you watch the game and what were your thoughts?
I seen most of it. I've been impressed by Hibs. I like Newell, and obviously,
very good.
Yeah, Boyle and that you've mentioned, but I like Newell.
Yep.
A lefty in the middle of the park. I like it. I have been impressed with Hibs. A few times I've seen them, and they're going well. I was kind of looking at their away form. Not been great, has it?
Nah.
If they could have brushed up in that, you don't know. They could have been sitting second at some point.
Yeah.
But they've been impressive.
Wilson, what's your thoughts on Hibs? Obviously, but you've said how you've been quite impressed with their front three, but do you think it is a case like Kevin Nisbet? I know we spoke a lot about, obviously been linked with Brentford over the past couple of days. Do you think he is good enough to go and play at that level?
I think it's hard to tell. I mean, I think there was obviously interest from Birmingham City in January when they signed Cosgrove as well. Mm-hmm. And again, there's probably much more qualified people than me to guess whether he was good enough. But what's that? Is it 13 goals he scored? 18 maybe goals in the league this year. There'll be many that do that. So he's definitely had a very good season. Whether he makes the Euro squad, I'm still undecided. You know, I'd picked my Euro strikers on this. And he wasn't included. Now they have 3 extra places, then Willie. But I was a wee bit disappointed because I actually thought it was a straight shootout between Nisbet and Shankland yesterday. And I think Nisbet's just maybe nudged ahead of the queue now, his performance and his goal. So on that. But on the first thing I'm kind of worried about is that Bobby Madden gave a decision to a team in green at Hampden yesterday, which I found absolutely shocking. I don't know if Bobby's getting his colourblind test today or not, but I'm sure he'll be hauled over the coals by the SFA and the establishment to decide that he gave Hibs a decision yesterday that it wasn't Morelos, Roof or Aribo or someone, you know. He'll be in big trouble, poor man.
Brilliant.
We'll move on to the second game, the second semi-final. So today, St Johnstone 1-2-1. Kane and Middleton with the goals and McCarthy pulled one back for St Mirren. Wilson, we're going back to a wee while ago where you said, in a quote, Callum Davidson is the worst manager in the league. He's now manager of the year.
That is not a direct quote. What I did at the start of the season, I tipped them for relegation, and I'll be honest to say that I didn't see anything about them when these predictions were done that made me think. But again, and that's, as I say, Gordon and Alan will be well versed as pundits to know that people want to prove you wrong. You know, you sometimes have to eat your words. Absolutely, I tipped them for relegation, and they've went on to a cup final, won a trophy, and finished in the top 6. So you have to say it's some achievement. Again, if you look at both semi-finals, I think both the favourites went through. But I mean, even this morning, I put in our chat this morning, I had a wee sneaky feeling St Mirren might do something. But I watched from about 25 minutes onwards, and it was pretty much all St Johnstone. I know latterly St Mirren got the goal, and then Brophy had a chance. near the end. But I think the two favourites through, and it should be a good cup final. Obviously with the big boys on it, it should be a decent enough cup final.
Gordon, you've every Monday to Friday you're talking about Scottish football. How impressed have you been with Callum Davidson?
I mean, it is an unbelievable job. See, if you think, we always bring things back to resources in Scottish football, but I think you kind of have to, right? We exist in a pretty weird footballing structure where we've got these two superpowers that are just on a completely different financial planet. You then get maybe another wee tier of Aberdeens and Hibs and then really the rest. And you look at the group of players, I don't think it's disrespectful to say that there's nothing really remarkable in there. They now actually, to be fair, are at a bit of a level where you might think, okay, does Ali McCann go on to the next level? Does Jason Kerr? Does Liam Gordon? Does Jamie McCart? But by and large, take today, for instance, Chris Kane, I think about 250 St Johnstone appearances spread over 8 years with loan spells at Dumbarton, just kind of always there and, pops up in a semi-final to get the team through to the final. Glenn Middleton, probably not going to cut it at Rangers, a completely forgettable loan spell at Hibs, then goes to St Johnstone, comes off the bench and, makes an unbelievable contribution to, again, getting the team to the final. The second final of the season, as we know, having already won one of them, I don't even know how you would sum it up. I mean, he's certainly a worthy manager of the year contender. It's a shame for him he exists in a footballing world that was so obsessed with either getting or stopping 10 in a row. And obviously the nature of the way that Rangers have gone about it, you can get, you get why the Steven Gerrard discussion. But honestly, if there's not clubs having a serious look at Callum Davidson already, then they're missing a trick.
Yeah, I definitely think he's actually been brilliant how he's coped there. Glenn Middleton, I want to touch on as well, Kerzo. Obviously, he's out there on loan for Rangers. Do you think he has been written off at Rangers, and do you think there maybe as a player there who could go further than St Johnstone?
I think the fact that he's been out on loan before as well, I would say I don't see him fitting in there, if you like, because Rangers have got too much that are there than now that are better. I'm not saying he'll know at the finish up, but he's off a hot and cold for me. Although his goals great. Although you could say that about the goalkeeper as well. It's not right in the corner. I know that, but his technique for it was great. I just think maybe a St Johnstone. You know how sometimes players find a level. That might just be his level, and I don't know. I couldn't see him having a sustained run for Rangers, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, Alan, do you think that's... I mean, we discuss this quite a lot in this show, and I know you're a regular listener. Do you think there's a lot of these guys that are just not quite ready or good enough for Rangers and Celtic, but they would be St Johnstone's best player, Kilmarnock's best player, that type? Because I asked you this, and again, Gordon may correct me, or you may correct me. I always felt that way with Andy Halliday, for example. And I know he got a bit of criticism and Rangers were on a tough time, etc., but I felt if Andy Halliday came to Kilmarnock, he'd be Kilmarnock's best player.
Aye.
You've seen that Chris Butt's Kilmarnock's best player at the moment, Kyle Lafferty's best player, Glenn Middleton's doing well at St Johnstone. So these guys maybe just not good enough for the Old Firm at the moment, or have been, but they come down to the teams and, as you say, find a level and,
And that's same. I would say the key thing for it is you need a run of games. 2-3 games is no use. You need 7, 8, 9 and above to prove whether you're going to be good enough. And he's not had that chance, and I don't think he'll get it. But I know what you're saying there. People find a level, as you say, Andy Halliday at Kilmarnock would be. It's again, I go back to that. You need a run of games before you can prove whether you're good enough to play at it. And maybe he's going to get that at St Johnstone now. You don't know. But for me, it's just too stop start for him at the minute. I don't know why it is.
Yeah.
You look how well Rangers have done this season in the league. So it's even hard for the likes of Defoe to get a run of games, Eaton to get a run of games. These guys have been over the course before. Glenn Middleton's still a young man.
I know. That's the thing as well.
Kemal Roof's not necessarily a starter every week. And how hard it must be to get in that team if they're behind that group of players,
He's got time on his side, but as I say, I think the fact that he's been out, is it twice in loan before Right,
Yeah.
Gordon.
Yeah, I said Hibs last. Was that last season they went to Hibs? Yeah.
Aye. When you're looking at a third spell, for me personally, I think the writing's on the wall. That's the way I would take it. Rightly or wrongly, I don't know, you know. But again, I'll go back to the key is you need a run of games, and you'll not get that there at the moment.
Definitely. Right, we'll go through. We'll go round the call. Who do we think wins the Scottish Cup final? Gordon, who you got? Hibs or St Johnstone?
Wow, that is really tough. I mean, I'll just throw out. If you want a name, I'll just go Hibs for the firepower, but because I don't like sitting in the fence. But that's that. I mean, it is tough. And look, St Johnstone obviously beat them in the previous semi-final. I think they're really well matched, which makes, for a neutral, it's brilliant. It's a nice novelty. No Celtic or Rangers. The vast majority of the country can just enjoy the spectacle, pick a team if they want, and hope it provides drama. Yeah, I think if Hibs front three are on it, they might nick it. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to see St Johnstone do it. Yeah,
it's going to be a really good game. Wilson, who are we thinking?
I'll go Hibs just for Craig Sampson. I think he's the brains behind the whole outfit up there, to be honest. I think he's the man that pulls Jack Ross's strings, so I'll go for Hibs.
Brilliant. Kerzo, who you got?
I'm going for Hibs. I've just got too much quality, as Gordon says, up top for me. The goals, when Nisbet and Doidge, I was just saying this earlier, finishes, the passing that into the net for me is great. It's all about composure. There's no snatching. There's no trying to take the paint off the ball. As I always say to boys, it's just great. Two great finishes, passing the side fit into the net. That's it. I think they've got too much quality, to be honest, for St Johnstone. But you never know. You never know, don't you know?
I did mention the big Xander Clark's my neighbour, so I want to see if any of the after party makes its way to this street. So maybe I'll just go for him. A bit of neighbourhood bias. Maybe I'll stick him in the frame. Maybe he'll come up and actually score this time rather than just getting an assist. But I'll
send me his number, Gordon, will you?
Give him an honourable mention.
Brilliant. We'll move on to talking about your career, Gordon, as well. Obviously, you grew up a Motherwell fan. What were your favourite memories kind of growing up and following Motherwell? There must be some good players in there as well that you grew up as heroes.
If you support teams like that, it's always a roller coaster, isn't it? I mean, like if I think back to like the first, I can't even remember who the first game I went to was against. I know I was a kid and I fell asleep, which maybe tells you a little bit about the kind of standard. And then after that, the other kind of early memories is losing a League Cup penalty shootout to Alloa at Fir Park. And you think, why on earth did you stick with that? Like, why did you not just ditch it right there and then? But a roller coaster. I mean, you're right. I just kind of grew up like 2 streets down from Fir Park. My primary school was next door to Fir Park. I was just always like seduced by the full thing, so being able to just see the stadium all the time and whatever. And I think, when you're proper young, it's maybe just guys that you're kind of told to like. Do you know what I mean? Like I always would say like, Dougie Arnott, but I was probably, when I was too young to really know who was good. He could have been hopeless, but I was probably told to like him.
He's a diving wee get. That's what he was.
that type of thing. I think, when you proper, the first team I remember like really having a bit of an appreciation for would be just at the kind of turn 2000. And I started going to games a bit more often, keeping it. I kind of like Lee McCulloch, John Spencer, that team. But then when I'm at an age of going every week and being obsessed with it and really having an idea, that's when a young James McFadden is making his debut. So it's just an absolute standout. I think he would be for a lot of Motherwell fans of varying ages anyway, but particularly my age group. You're talking about watching a guy break through when I was like, say, 10, 11, whatever. So then you're obsessed, and then you watch him grow, watch him leave, and then you really get your own ideas of like what a good player is and stuff like that. So it's him by a mile. So I know it's a kind of worn out cliche, but not even forget about consistency or whatever. Just the notion of somebody that just excites you, like just an air of anticipation when they got on the ball, and I kind of carried that on. Like that's what also got me into to watching Scotland. Really, see, once he started getting Scotland caps, that's when me and my mate started going, purely because he was ours, if you like. Mm-hmm. And even like we'd keep an eye for thereafter. And I always remember, I've got a tendency to go off on tangents here, so if this keeps happening, just mute me or whatever. But I remember I've now been lucky enough to kind of get to know him, had him on the show, interviewed him loads, played 5-a-sides against him, which is really weird. Like, he's like when he nutmegged you and you think, of course he did. But I remember him telling a story when I interviewed him on a Scotland podcast, and he said that when he used to pick up the ball at Hampden, when he got the ball at his feet in a Scotland game at Hampden, he could hear this plastic seats snapping back into position as the fans were all standing up in expectation. And he loved that and he would thrive on it. And I was sitting there like, hairs in the back of my neck when he's talking about that, goosebumps, thinking, that's amazing. Like, how many players would give you that, like, oh no, I'm just focused in the game, I don't notice what goes on in the stand. Not only was he noticing, he was saying that honestly he could distinguish that noise of all the seats snapping back, which meant people were on their feet, which meant they were expecting him to make something happen. And I just loved that. And that was me as a kind of 10-year-old. But enough of that faddy loving.
Brilliant. Was it always your plan to get involved in like journalism? Was that always a plan from in school?
Yeah, I think as for as long as I can realistically remember. I mean, I sort of, you wouldn't even have called it an academy then, would you? It would have been a kind of pro youth thing. I played up at Motherwell when I was like 11, 12, and it's straight away that once it got to like that stage, I knew playing football was never a realistic option. So talking about it seemed like the next best thing, and as long as I can remember, I then kind of started roughly, because you're still young, but gearing kind of school subjects towards that stuff. And as soon as I was old enough to do any sort of work experience and whatever else, and then I did a postgrad at uni. So I was probably from kind of mid-teens onwards, certainly. This is kind of always what I wanted to do.
Obviously, you get the presenting job at Superscoreboard, but before that, you're kind of travelling around the grounds. Like, how much did you enjoy that? Like, what was the kind of best memories for that?
Absolutely loved it, honestly. Like, I just felt like just proper loved everything about Scottish football then, and just got to like soak it in. And I felt like I just knew everything about every team because I was just seeing them. You know, there's no real substitute for that. You can like Google things or look up results, but see, just like being there and seeing who plays and who plays where and what teams are like, and just even me daft things. Like a Facebook memory of mine popped up the other day, and it was like, I think it was Dunfermline. Would it have been Dunfermline Wraith? It would be like the derby at East End Park, and I think there was 11,000 there. Just ridiculous, you know. And I remember, and it was Sammy the Tammy, the Dunfermline mascot, came out with a fake cardboard tank, and he was pretending to shoot the opposition fans. And in true Scottish football fashion, he got in deep shit for it or whatever. Probably sacked the poor guy. So just seeing like the wee games that like probably don't hit home on like a national media level, like barely get any attention. Then some good memories of like being able to get paid to watch my own team, which was lovely. And then the kind of, you know, the massive standout moments are like Nou Camp, Celtic, Champions League, Lee Griffiths, 2 free kicks against England, totally losing all sense of professional pride and going fucking mental in the press box, like embarrassing. Like, I'd hate to look back on it. I was like jumping up and down, running back and forward, like Gary Neville and Martin Tyler were sitting directly in front of me, and just that was just like nothing I've ever seen. Like Hampden was just moving. So there have been loads, you know, like just been involved at the kind of the journey, as the Rangers fans would call it, some mad days. Like honestly, going to like, I remember Jim Duffy and I get sent to Elgin Rangers, and did Elgin not do something mental? Like they sold too many tickets. They were trying to like make extra money by like cramming like too many people in or something. So I think when the game eventually went ahead or something, I was up there, and these clubs obviously don't have like real press facilities, and then all of a sudden all the Glasgow press rock up. So they had me and Jim Duffy sitting, like I was behind him, like directly behind him, and I'm supposed to be like talking to him, like, you know, like on the show, like asking him, and I was just staring at the back of his head. It was just surreal, like those games. And but you know what, it allowed me to tick off most of the grounds in the SPFL, so never a dull day. I absolutely loved it.
And then obviously you move on to be the presenter as well. Obviously, like Hugh Keevins, Gordon Dalziel, there's some great characters on it. Did you obviously like feel the pressure of going on to like an institution, like as an institution kind of show?
Ultimately, it is. I mean, yeah, I think the pressure sort of came. I think before there was a period where I had been like offered the job and then starting, and that would be so. I got offered almost like a football off season. I got offered it near the end of the season in the May, then wouldn't have started to the end of July. That was probably the bit where I felt the pressure. I remember getting offered the job, and like my wife was in the car and stuff, and the phone on the loudspeaker, and I felt like she was more excited than I was. I was just shitting myself. Like that's just in my nature. Where straight away I was like, oh God, like you're right. Like as an institution, like what if I make an arse of this? Like what if everybody hates it? Like what if nobody? Like all the kind of usual thoughts go through your head. Just realised like far too good. And you know, whilst having that, I was never going to turn it down. And I think that's where the sort of pressure was felt. You know, just like fear of failure. I guess I'm not like too ashamed to admit that. And this sounds a bit cheesy, but I always say to people, like, quite lucky because I think that shows you I'm actually not that confident, or maybe as confident as people would expect for somebody that has to kind of put themselves out there all the time. But actually, when it comes to just being there and putting that mic on, that's when everything disappears from me. So like the first moment, 2 minutes past 6, 31st of July 2017, theme tune ends, mic goes on, and boom, that's it. Sigh of relief and just go, and then take it for there. So the pressure and that all kind of, I think, was felt a wee bit before. There was a wee bit made as well. Like if you're talking about pressure, I don't think it made much difference, but it was like, I think I was by some distance the youngest presenter the show had ever had. I think it would have been 27 at the time. And so like when they were like announcing it and stuff, which is so weird, there's like a PR company involved in like writing a press release, and there was like, they were almost like negotiating with me, like, what do you think, like, do you want it to be about how you're the youngest ever host? And the guy was saying, my opinion, I think we should take that out. I think, you know, it should speak for itself that they think you're up to doing the job. Let's not like focus on your age and whatever. It was just all a bit surreal. I was just like, I don't really know. I'm not really bothered. I think everybody knows I'm young, and crack on. So like I say, I think before it, the pressure, but what can you do? You still get dogs abuse to this day, so you can't please everybody.
There's some brilliant like calls you must have to deal with like every day. Like what's a call that sticks out to you that you'll never forget, that's just balmy?
Yeah, I think it's probably the range. So if I can do more than one, if it's that sort of like, obviously the people tune in for the madness, right? There's no doubt about that. Like people totally tune in for the chaos, for the madness. And I don't know what your swearing policy is on here. I don't know if you're, and by the way, every time I do one of these podcasts, nobody ever tweets me and says, that was brilliant, I really enjoyed hearing from you. They just tweet me and say, I didn't know you swore. I can't believe I heard you swear. And I'm like, so basically the one that would stick out would be one that never made it to air, and it was when a caller called Scott Brown a cunt live on air. However, I do have the magic dump button which makes that stuff disappear. So the story goes, he phones in, I've told this before, so the boy phones in, he's a Rangers fan, and he says, I'm telling you, something up with this Rangers midfield now, you know, we need a winner in there, and I can kind of see where it's going, and he's like, do you know what we need in there? Now, I'm not saying I like the cunt, but we need a Scott Brown, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, same thing, because that's when we get swearers quite a lot, but it's always the same, the same panic, you're like, and then you just a couple of wee things you need to do, like pull their mic down and then press the dump button. And because we broadcast in an 8-second delay, as long as I press that button within the 8 seconds, it will never go out on air. But I still hear it. The pundits still hear it. The producer hears it. So I'm always looking at the pundits, like, and then we'll kind of start laughing. But as soon as I press that button, we are then very much live. That 8 seconds is gone.
Yeah,
we're like back in the moment, if you like. So if you want to laugh, but you can't really, because the listener will never know what's going on. The extra bizarre thing about that is I remember going and playing fives the next morning, came back out, turned my phone back on, like dozens of like missed calls, messages, email. I'm like, oh no, like just, you know, that way you just know, what have I done? Roger Hanna, who's on the show, worked at the Scottish Sun, missed call from, I phone him back, he's like, did somebody call Scott Brown a cunt last night? And I was like, aye, how'd you know that? Though? I dumped it. And he says, it's not been taken out of the podcast. He says, if you listen to the podcast, that's still in it. So it didn't go out live on the show, but if you listen back, as thousands of people do, because loads of people just do it the next day, it's still in the podcast. And Roger said, because I've just had an email in from our digital desk with our like schedule for the day, and it says like, listen, as Super Scoreboard caller calls Scott Brown a cunt live on air. And I was like, you're joking me. I was like, Roger, please, like, just make that disappear. Like, just do it, just please. And I don't think it ever made the Sun. And the producer who forgot to cut out the podcast got his backside felt, put it that way.
He obviously as well, like the kind of relationship you've got with like Hugh Keevins and Gordon Duncan, I think is brilliant. I think it's one of the best things about the show. Like how good is it for you kind of been on with those guys?
It is good. I mean, I think that was always, I think it is important, kind of looking back on it. I never had any preconceptions as to like how I would do it or what I would do. I think now looking back, I think a lot of it just revolves around the personal relationships that we all have. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that my way is the only way and that everybody can like it. I know loads of people hate it and won't want to listen, but for me, I think radio as a medium above everything else is about that sort of familiarity. You know, people like to sort of feel a wee bit like they know you and like kind of what's going on. Oh, I remember he said that, and Hugh will throw in wee things about his grandkids, and Gordon will talk about how he's been divorced 4 times, and Mark Wilson, we slag him about the Brecon thing, and I think that's important. See, when we'll always have discussions about like, new pundits or who could we get on or whatever, and honestly, see like right up there with like football knowledge and ability to speak, right up there, I would put ability to laugh at yourself. I think it's so important. It is so, and I like that about the pundits. Mark Wilson's played in the Champions League. He's played in 18 Old Firm games. And yet we can be like, remember you at Brecon, you were absolutely minging, and like he'll laugh at it. It would be very easy for him to kind of give it, I've played in the Champions League, like with the sort of thing. But most of the guys, in fact all of them, they've got that great ability to laugh at themselves. So I love that, and it's just a bit of, it's a mix. If they were all the same, I don't think it would work. It's a bit like any workplace. Hugh. He's a unique individual. He's obviously been there, seen it, done it. Very articulate, and with the way he speaks and so on. Gordon DL comes into being very much the joker. You've got kind of Marc and Alex who've maybe played the game a bit more recently. Roger Hannan providing that kind of journalistic feel. Jim Duffy would come into that kind of, what's that classic cliche of being a proper football man? Like, do you know what I mean? So I just feel like there's that mix, and you don't need to like them all individually, but I just feel like it kind of comes together to have a pretty good blend. Like I say, you can't please everybody. If they think it's rubbish, fine. But
I'll be honest, I love the way you cut folk off. You can hear somebody going away in a tangent and then you just cut them dead. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's. Do you know what? And that's the thing. Like that's what I'm there for, and that's what I'm there for, is to just make those snap-second judgments. And again, like, see if people don't like it, I'm cool with that. I just want people to know that it's always well intentioned. I just think that the way we talk about football here, right, and especially all the kind of the sort of the bias thing and the conspiracies and the way we'll go on, like people could will go anywhere, and go off and people then think that if I kind of nip that in the bud, look at him, he doesn't want to hear about Rangers being liquidated, or that's because he's a big Celtic man. And it's like, no, it's because we're talking here about who's a good holding midfielder, and then we've started talking about liquidation for 2012, and I just like to try and keep the conversation kind of relevant and sensible. And then it's about kind of, again, I then need to judge the moments when to let that happen, because I think, right, this might be funny and we might get a bit of controversy here. So it's just I'm just constantly having to make those snap judgments and just trying my best. I've never really had any, like I said earlier, preconceptions. It's just about what feels right at the time to try and steer the conversation a certain way. People always think it's for some sort of like sinister reason, and it literally never is. It's just me just trying my best.
Wilson, have you ever phoned Dan?
No, absolutely. I wouldn't want to interrupt Gordon at our work. And I just want to clarify for our listeners that I'm not the Mark Wilson that Gordon's fanatical about. I only played 17 times in the Champions League in my career, so just in case there's any mix up there. But no, I agree with Alan. And I think it's, and we've had this discussion with Scott as being the host. You have to sit. You said at the beginning of it, you don't like sitting on the fence, but you as a presenter kind of have to sit on the fence. Yeah. Unless it's an absolutely absurd call. So just say, for example, you've got Mark Wilson and Alex Ray on, and we know what side of the fence they both will fall on. Do you find it very difficult, even though you maybe have an opinion on it, but you're not really going to say it?
Yeah, but it's weird how automatic I'll end up arguing opinions that I actually don't even have. I find myself doing that all the time. It's more often if it's like, if I find that both pundits, if for whatever reason I feel like they're both on the same side, then I think, right, well, I need to go I need to be the opposite rather than those two. And you're right about the way that can be perceived. So take for example, by the way, how spooky is that? I know I shouldn't have just glanced at my phone when we're being very serious and in the middle, but Mark Wilson has just texted me this very minute. It's quite spooky, by the way. I think he knows we're talking about him and he's got a namesake on the podcast. Anyway,
he would love to meet me as well. He's always said that. He would love to meet me.
So like, for instance, like, I don't know, say a hotly debated one, I don't know, say it's Alfredo Morelos and his temperament, right? And say Hugh Evans and Mark Wilson are saying, like, do you know what? It's too much. Like, you can't rely on this guy. It's out of the order. It's one too many. You know, Rangers should cash in, get rid of him. Whether I agreed with that or not, I don't even think about whether I agree with it or not. I just think, hold on a minute, you know, well, whatever it might be, he's only young. Is there not still scope for him to learn? What a great player he is. Would you be taking some of that out of his game? Like, do we not go overboard that culturally he's from a different background? I might not even really believe in those things, but it's just about trying to provide a bit of balance. But then inevitably what happens then is, of course, I'll get accused, look at this, he's a Rangers cheerleader, he's sucking up to Morelos or whatever it is. But like I said, it's never the case. I just, whatever I can, my priority is always just to get the best conversation going. I don't know whether it works or not, but I try my best.
Definitely. Wilson, you've obviously got your questions, fire away.
You want me to do this now?
Aye, on you go, aye.
Right, I don't want to put, so I've got a few kind of generic ones now. Again, Gordon, apologies. We thought you were older than us, to be fair.
No, I think these are before my time. I'll be
they'll be done before Alan's time because I've done for the black and white televisions. But with your vast knowledge, I'm sure you'll be fine. And there might be one or two about your co-hosts as well that I'm sure you'll be able to answer. So what I'll ask the question. I'll give you a couple of seconds or minutes or so, and then you can give me your answers, and I'll tell you who's right or wrong. That's it.
Right. So what are we just shouting them out, or
no? I'll ask the question, have a wee think, then I'll get your answers, and I'll tell you if that's right or wrong. Don't want you writing stuff down. It's a Sunday night.
Right. Okay.
Right. Here we go. In 1995, the League Cup final. What was unique about the winners? That's the Scottish League Cup final. What was unique about the winners?
Right, I was 6 at the time, so this will be good fun.
I mean, Scott, I can fill in with the audience just now and tell them.
Aberdeen won it, Wilson.
Yes.
Aye.
Yeah. Oh, see, there you go. That's the knowledge you need, Gordon, on the show.
I knew Aberdeen won it, but I just don't know what's unique about them.
I would get Alan on Super Scoreboard 100%. Knowledge this guy has is phenomenal.
If I get this,
I think I know it, but I think I could if it's.
Was it the first ever Coca-Cola Cup final? Was that what? No.
Was it the first time a foreign manager won the trophy?
No. Gordon, would you like to hazard a guess?
That was at that time on it when they were dishing out bikes for Man of the Match award.
Aye.
That's what I've got in my head. Is like,
That's the answer, isn't it?
No, that's good. I remember that.
Was it Stephen Glass actually? That's who I've got in my head. Somebody with a bike. Anyway, so I know the kind of era. I can picture the team that stripped the bike. What would have been unique about them? That didn't unique about the winners. Nah, you'll need to put me out of misery.
Anyone has another guess? I'd give us another guess. No.
No idea.
Alan, you biting your lip there? No.
Is it something to do with Hampden?
No.
No, I'm done.
The starting 11, the bench, and the manager were all Scottish.
Oh, right, okay, I like that.
Starting 11, the bench, and the manager were all. Roy Aitken was the manager.
All right, I like to learn. I'm happy with that.
Right, good. No, good start. Right. Right, here we go. And another one before Gordon was born. In the 1989-90 season, who was the Premier League's top scorer?
Oh, my word.
Pikey looks confident there.
I think I'm right.
He looks confident. His Google app is working quicker than Kerr's.
Mark Haitley.
Gordon.
Hans Hillhouse.
No. Gordon.
Nah, I wouldn't know. Nah, I wasn't even born. December 89.
John Robertson.
Ooh.
I guess now you should all get this one. I'll get a bit easier now. Who was relegated from the SPL in 2015-16?
Right, so 15-16 is...
You got that one, Kelso?
I'll let them answer first, because I've answered first the last two.
Correct, Pikey. Get your Google, stop typing.
Ross County.
Gordon.
15, 16.
Was you no born then, no?
No, I was born then, just. I try to think straight down. No, I don't know. Oh my goodness. Maybe it's Ross County, no?
Alan.
Inverness.
Aye.
Kelly.
Dundee United. Let's beat the pundit must be pimps, man. I'm on it tomorrow. Get me right through, Gordon, tomorrow.
Years are. Come on, years. They're difficult.
Me 80s questions, I'd have got them.
Right, here's one for Gordon. He'll know this. How many goals did Gary McAllister score for Scotland?
What?
A big Tartan Army, man. Come on.
I have no idea. Nah, it'll be a relatively low number because I know
57 caps.
Aye, so you're probably looking. I'd still say it's less than 10 goals, isn't it? 8.
12.
Alan.
I've got 11 in my head.
5, just.
Aye, I knew it would be low. Like,
Aye.
so if you look through the list of our top scorers, it's pretty grim. I mean, it's.
Is Kenny Douglas no top like 30 or something?
Aye.
Aye. Back to my specialist subject earlier, I remember like McFadden had like 13, and that was like it's not a million miles off. I think Stephen.
It just shows you.
Aye.
To be fair, the questions are tough because Shankers and Rory, that are regular contributors to the show, are unbelievable football anoraks.
Aye, because you give them the answer.
They're a wee bit tougher. Right, okay, here we go. In 2012-13 season, who was Rangers' top scorer in all competitions?
Right, I would. Is it Andy Little?
Alan?
I think it's Andy Little.
I should know this.
And if it's not, I think I know the other one.
So do I.
Shankers would know it straight away with his encyclopedic knowledge of all things Rangers.
Because I know that him and another were head-to-head sort of thing going for it.
I'll go with Andy Little.
The other name is Lee McCulloch.
Yeah, I think it's either Little or
Andy
McCulloch.
Little was top league scorer. Lee McCulloch was top scorer in all competitions with 26.
I remember them sort of going head-to-head for it.
I'll give you no points for that. You got it wrong. Right. Question 6. This is one. How much did Celtic pay for Marc Wilson when he left Dundee United?
A bag of balls. Can't have been much.
1 million.
I think it's
Must have been less.
1.2.
Oh God, is it as much as that? I was going to say a couple $100 grand.
1 million. It must have been less. 1.2. He says.
No, I think it is. I remember it was in the million.
Is it? Aye.
I think so.
I never bragged about that. That's interesting. Just put me out of my misery. I'd have thought a couple $100 grand.
£500,000, £500,000.
I was going to say 4, but I still would have been wrong. So, nah, he's worth that maybe.
You're really good at this. That's nothing at 7. Right. Gordon.
You realise that means we can just blame you. See if it's that bad. That means you've pitched the questions at the long time.
As I say, I'm used to those 2 anoraks that are on here, so I'll need to change it.
Listen, there are anoraks, right? Nobody knows how much Celtic paid for Marc Wilson, believe me.
Well, just before he texted me, Gordon, he asked that question to you. So, right, Gordon Dale played for Rangers, Manchester City, Raith Rovers, and Ayr United. Can you name another 2 Scottish League clubs that he played for?
Partick Thistle and East Stirling.
Scott?
Partick Thistle and East Stirling.
Alan?
Partick Thistle and East Stirling.
Well done, that was good.
They just copied me because I sounded so confident there.
Exactly, I know you need.
I knew he played for Partick Thistle, but East Stirling I would have got.
Right, okay. Alex Ray played 585 games in his career. How many goals did he score? Now I've got a choice of 3. Gordon. Right.
Right.
Was it 114?
Uh-huh.
Was it 124? Or was it 134?
See, again, I don't care who your football anoraks are. Nobody knows the answer to this question. Nobody knows this. Alex might not even know this.
Mark Shanklin would know the answer to this because he played with it. I'm telling you, he would know this.
There's only 10 between options 2 and 3. I'll go the middle one, right down the middle. I know he had a decent return at various spells, 124 or whatever it was.
124.
I'll go 114.
You just go for the third one, will you? And see
114 I'm going for as well.
114 it was, aye.
Oh,
And again, I thought my audience was different. I didn't have time to change the questions. This was for Shankers as well. In the 2018 Scottish Cup semi-final, what minute and who came on? What minute was Andy Halliday subbed off for and who came on for him?
Right, I think it was like 43, wasn't it? 43, just before half-time. A big Rangers fan would certainly know who came on. I think I was there as well.
We were trying to out you, Gordon. That's why we asked that. We're trying to out you.
I'm pretending I don't know. Actually, I really know who it was. I was there. I think like 41, 43, just before half time. 41 or something. And then
I think I know who it was that came on.
I don't know. Who would you go for? Who would you guess?
I think it's Josh Windass.
Alan, any advance?
I would say 44 and Barry McPike.
41.
That's 41.
And Josh Windass.
I think between us we kind of got there.
I would give you that. I would give you that. And then the last one, again, I apologise for the audience that were meant to be different. Since Steven Gerrard's come in to Rangers, how many penalties have they had in the league? So bearing in mind, when Walter Smith was the manager over 2 spells, they get 2 penalties, I think, in 15 seasons. How many have they had since 2018? Bobby Madden knows the answer.
24.
22.
29.
Yeah, so what I guess that is 23. But hey, there's still a couple of games to go. Right, that's the 10 questions. You'll know about that.
They were the most difficult questions I've ever heard in my life.
But again, I apologise, Gordon, it was for those other 2 anoraks. They would have got about 8 out of 10 with those.
I need to meet these guys because I know a lot of big Rangers fans and I'm still not sure they would know exactly how many penalties they did in the last 3 seasons.
Marc Shanklin would know how many blades of grass on the 6-yard box at Ibrox, I'm telling you. Unbelievable, his knowledge about Rangers. No, that's why those questions were pitched towards.
I don't mind that. I don't mind being shown up. You don't need to apologise. It's our fault for not being good enough.
Who's the best for the pundit?
I wasn't told about was getting questions too. 5 minutes before I couldn't get on.
Is Roger Hannah the best in beat the pundit?
I think hands down. I mean, I feel sorry for him a wee bit. So he was like, I think he didn't lose in like 2 years, and it was just like, right, so we'll start on like ridiculous, like just knows everything. And again, because it spans like he could go from maybe 80s to now, just encyclopedic. Didn't lose for a couple of years, so we started him on -1 every week. So just for a bit of fun, he starts on -1. But then this year, some guy on Twitter set up an account like dedicated to basically keeping a league table of all the pundits and how they do and the win percentages and whatever. So I feel a bit for Roger Hannah because he has now lost twice and he's not top of the league, but he starts on -1, like, and none of the rest of the guys do. So to be fair, Andy Halliday's been brilliant. He's come in, he's played about 12 times and only lost once. So he's top of the league on his win percentage. But I think, to be fair to Andy, he's a humble man. I think he knows that if he went head to head with Roger, I think he would get dealt with. But as it's a results driven business. You can only beat what's in front of you and all the other football cliches. So he is top of the table, but my money would be Roger Hannah all day long.
He's quite knowledgeable and open goal, Andy Halliday, when he talks about the game and things. It's not the kind of carry on about what they think when they start talking about serious football. And Kevin Kyle's the same. You think these guys are on these things for a laugh, but see if it's Simon Ferry too. See if you sit and listen to them. They certainly know their, not just in trivia as such, but they certainly know their stuff about the game.
Andy likes his trivia, like from kind of City. He'll admit as well certain things, like obviously most things Rangers, and then like kind of if you get the time frame right, like kind of 2000s and stuff like that, he's bang on with stuff like that. He doesn't like stuff really before, and even like you find guys, it's like the really recent stuff that's quite hard. Like see that, like it's a great example. See when you're saying about like, so who get relegated 15, 16, like I feel like I could have told you loads about that season, and I know Dundee United would have went down round about that time, but you think, was it that season or was it the one before or was it the one after? So actually being able to recall that stuff, I think that's very difficult.
Definitely. We've got time for a few fan questions before we move on to the preview in the midweek games. This is one I want to throw to you, Gordon, because I know that it's going to come up quite a few times in Super Scoreboard. Do you see a future for Barkas at Celtic next season under Eddie Howe?
I find it so difficult to tell, right? But just because, and not because I think he's been anywhere close to good. I mean, everybody knows, like, it's been alarming to see a goalie who just doesn't make saves. Like, he just genuinely doesn't. And I don't think that's not even been super critical, is it? I think the biggest, most optimistic Celtic fan, you would have to admit, you would say, right, tell me even routine save, anything above routine that he's made, and I don't think he's managed it. But how many times have you seen players who just go from like, zero to hero by either just finding their feet, taking a bit of time, maybe it is a change of manager. So I think it would be wrong to like say no chance, done, never a future. But I think I'd have to say I would be surprised, but never know.
Wilson, what do you think? Do you not think it could be a thing as well? Like obviously right now a foreign goalkeeper, it's tough to settle in with the kind of difficulties of COVID and things like that.
Yeah, but just kind of highlight and repeat what Gordon said though. He's not done anything of note, and I would imagine. I mean, again, and this will come back and bite me, I'm sure. I don't think Eddie Howe will be the Celtic manager, but I think whoever it's going to be is just because of the press of it all. The first thing they'll be doing is out looking for a goalkeeper. So I would imagine whoever gets the job, the first signing they'll make is going to be who they'll deem as a number one goalkeeper. And I think Celtic will cut their losses, and if they can get any money, for him, and he'll go back to Greece or somewhere else in Europe, then I think we'll be happy for both parties, to be honest.
Why do you not think Howe's going to be the Celtic manager? Like, apart, all reports are the deal's done.
I know, but how long have we been hearing this?
I know.
And I've said on this podcast loads of times, if Eddie Howe was still at Bournemouth, there is absolutely no way he'd be linked with the job. Eddie Howe's been linked with the job because he's out of work and he's a young, fresh manager. But with the greatest respect, I hope he comes in and he does what Gerrard's done and what young, enthusiastic managers do, and make Celtic a force at home in Europe. Great, but I just can't see it. I think Celtic at the moment needs somebody with a bit of persona, a bit of personality that's going to be able to handle the press, handle the media. And as I said on our chat the other night, I just don't think Eddie Howe's that kind of person. I mean, he may be an unbelievable coach, but in terms of motive, Celtic are flat. Celtic are as well shutting the doors at Parkhead at the moment, because there's nothing seems to be happening. They've had that absolute calamitous season. You're looking at the squad, and yes, there's some fantastic players there, but going by an outsider's point of view and watching their games, you're looking like there's 10 to 15 players that don't want to be there. Or if they do want to be there, they're not exactly putting in any effort to show even a new manager watching from afar or watching from the stands, saying that I'd like to be a part of this Eddie Howe revolution. And I don't think he's the type of manager that can come in and motivate a dressing room. He doesn't look that sort of character now. Again, you judge a book by its cover. I think, and I know it's maybe not the done thing now, but I think Celtic need an old head coming in, like a Martin O'Neill, like a Gordon Strachan, that's going to not stand for any nonsense, sorry for my language, kick a few arses and try and get them back to some sort of level, because they're so far behind in terms of recruitment, personnel, players that want to be there. It's becoming a kind of laughing stock. And I'm sorry, I don't think Celtic fans are going to give Eddie Howe the same amount of time that Rangers fans gave Gerrard to win the league. I don't think Celtic fans have got the patience to be going, right, okay, we'll give him 2 or 3 seasons, see if he can win the league. I can't see that happening.
What are widely known as Neil Lennon's biggest strengths as a manager?
Motivation, probably.
So does that not prove that's not Celtic's problem?
Well, I think it became the players' problem, because and I find this at any level of football. See if you're not motivated, you're going to work hard. Don't go and play fives. You don't turn up and play and think, I'm just going to stand and watch James McFadden today because he's so good. You're going to go and say, I'm going to work my balls off to try and make James McFadden or even keep up with him.
That's my point. Anybody who's worked under Neil Lennon at either Celtic or Hibs says he's unbelievable, man, motivating. Some of the stuff he says, his speeches, some of the wee gestures he does in dressing rooms, say he's unbelievable at that. So I think, I don't know if it's a bit of a Scottish thing where we put a lot of emphasis on that sort of blood and thunder, kick some arses, get guys right up for it. There are some brilliantly coached teams off managers that don't look like they would say boo to a goose, but they're brilliant and they're well oiled and they know what they're doing. And I think a lot of it's kind of, I mean, take for instance, right, so take Rangers last year when they don't win any games. Tavernier is never a captain. He's hopeless. Look at him. I don't see him rallying MD. See now, he's a brilliant leader. I think our notion of leadership is an interesting one because we as Scots, I think, still prefer that kind of roll the sleeves up, grab people by the scruff of the neck type leadership. And I think, like, just look across football, there's some brilliant coaches out there who are very quiet and don't look like they could motivate players, but there is more than one way of motivating. Motivating doesn't mean getting people up against a wall. If you can give players a game plan that they really believe in, that's all the motivation you need.
But I think, and I've said on here before as well, I think there's a psychology thing with James Tavernier, because he has been bang average for 3 seasons or whatever he's been there, and then all of a sudden there's not 50,000 guys on his back, so he's free to express himself and go and play.
I think it's a bit easy. I think he's clearly been his best season, but I think he's been getting progressively better. I don't think he's just gone average, boom. I think he's been getting progressively better. I think it's a bit easy because whilst I could never disprove that theory, we'll never know. We're living in this absolute unique season. So we've seen Rangers be better than they have previously been and go, oh, well, then that must be because the stadiums are empty. Who knows?
Do you think a game like, I know again, can I get back to Barcast, but see, like, obviously we'll get into the midweek games, like Celtic play St Johnstone, Rangers play Livingston. Like, is that the time to kind of experiment with players that you think are going to be there next year, Kerr? Do you think that is the time to kind of see who's, like, there's 2 games that don't really mean a lot. Is this a chance to kind of see who's there for next season?
I'm all about go and fling the younger ones in, see what you've got there, see if they're good enough to step up with your last 2 games. But getting back to the point about Celtic, I don't think there've been 2. What's the word? Would you say he never knew his best 11? There was different systems. There was 3 at the back. There was a diamond. And a diamond clearly doesn't work. I just think he's been so inconsistent at his personnel as well. And Neil Lennon was chopping and changing far too often for me this season. Barkas, you don't know what's going to happen. A new manager come in, might take a fancy to him. Again, goes back to the key thing where you might say, go, you're getting a run of games, you're going to play 12, 13, 14 games. That's all it takes. Maybe the guy will step up, you don't know. We had this discussion before, Scott. I don't think he's commanding enough. I don't think he's the answer. But with everything that's happened, I would agree with Marc Wilson on James Tavernier, where he's not played nearly anywhere the level that he has done when there's fans been in. You know, as I can play with no pressure, because he struggled. I remember, Gordon, you were saying there about he was bang average and folk were saying that he was never a captain in it. And I actually thought that myself. But looking at him now, I mean, he stepped right up. And you've got to ask yourself, is it because he's playing with no pressure of fans rolling at every kick or every mistake he makes?
Or are Rangers better though? Or are Rangers just better? And
therefore, or Rangers just better, aye.
Or he's not as exposed anymore because they've had 3 years working at a system that now functions much better than it used to. And now when he goes, people fill in a more efficient way than what they used to. I don't know if that is the answer, but what I'm saying is people... why would we decide that it must be because of the fans?
Aye.
Rather than these other possibilities. It's been 3 years. Everybody knows, as you said, would Eddie Howe get the same amount of time? That's a fact. 3 years. It has taken 3 years. So what's to say that this Rangers team hasn't now just been getting better and you're now getting the best out of him? Why is that not a possibility? Why does it have to be the fact that there's no fans?
That's what I was going to say. Consistency was the word I'm looking for. Gerrard knows he's favoured 11, whereas Lennon never had that. I felt whenever I watched Celtic, they were chopped and changed. Personnel was different, and I said systems was different. I watched them with 3 at the back. I watched them with a diamond, and it clearly wasn't working. Where consistency is the key with Gerrard. Where you know what's coming out there. That 11.
A lot obviously goes into that, because we could do 10 podcasts on this. That goes down to maybe not getting recruitment right, so you don't feel like you've got the right personnel to play certain positions. Celtic's lack of width this season has been alarming. Fullbacks, the fullbacks really struggling in that area. If you look at how strong they were a couple of years ago, this bid week, I know you're kind of keen to talk about that. I think the ship sort of sailed a wee bit for Celtic. 2 games left. Yes, I suppose, why not stick Karamoko Dembele in if you and let's see whoever else, Sorrow. But
because all you hear is there's great young players at Celtic and Rangers. Why no now? There's nothing to lose with 2 games to go. Rangers
will obviously I think they'll want to now just get this unbeaten season, won't they? I think that changes things a wee bit. I'm not saying they're desperate. I think it's not the be all and end all, but once you're within 2 games, you probably want to just tick it off. So I'd be surprised if they went proper experimental midweek. I would like to see Celtic do something. 2 games left. Let's see Karamoko Dembele. Who knows? Stick Barkas back in for a couple of games. Play Sorrow again, because I don't really think he did much wrong. I think most people are quite happy with him.
I agree with you there.
Thought they quite liked him. There are no fans in, so the sentiment of sort of giving Scott Brown the big send-off when there's not even any fans there anyway, I don't know how important that is. My God, not a night goes by on Super Scoreboard when we don't talk about why not give Lee Griffiths a game? The Euros is round the corner. Are Celtic going to trigger that extension? They might as well do something the next couple of games, but I think a lot of fans would have rather seen it 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think so as well. We'll move on to the midweek games. Obviously, we've got Livingston Rangers, Celtic St Johnstone, a big game for 3rd place between Aberdeen and Hibs. But Wilson, the bottom of the league's where I want to touch on with you. Kilmarnock have a massive game on Wednesday against St Mirren. What do we think?
I just hope St Mirren are suffering from a Hampden hangover, to be honest. I say I thought the game, the Scottish Cup quarter-final, I thought Kelly were quite unlucky. It came down to an error of judgment from the goalkeeper and the fullback. But as I say, again, and I've said before since he signed, if a fit Kyle Lafferty probably keeps Kilmarnock up, to be honest. When they had that injury against St Mirren, we still went out and scored 3 goals without him. But I think it's just the presence he brings, and kind of Tommy Wright's got putting balls into the box where he thrives on. He looked a wee bit jaded against Mull. I know he had one of these protective boots on, and he missed the St Mirren game, and then the Saturday against Motherwell. But I know I hate sounding confident, but I fancy coming out to beat St Mirren on Wednesday, if I'm honest. And especially if Kyle Lafferty plays. So again, you don't like being confident, but I think they will beat them on Wednesday night.
What are you hoping for in the other game, Ross County Hamilton?
Well, you're probably hoping for a draw there, to be honest, because I know if Ross County win, then that would be them, finishing 10th. But as I say, so you're maybe probably looking for a draw, so you're not guaranteed in the playoffs. So I would take that, but again, Ross County know if they win, then they'll be pretty much in the SPL next year. But again, and Alan will laugh in 6 weeks' time when I say this, I fancy any of the 11th place team in the Premier League to beat Dundee or Raith. I know that sounds a wee bit, Raith play well and Dundee have got some decent players and Charles Adam, etc. But I think certainly Ross County and Kilmarnock, I think, would be too strong for Dundee or Raith.
Kerr, what's your thoughts? Obviously, former Kilmarnock man.
I'll stick my head on the line and saying they're going to do it. I just think, as Wilson touched on there, a fit Kyle Lafferty leading the line, putting balls into the box is the key. But they need to get the middle of the park right as well, because I've watched several games and Dicker's not doing much for me. I just think they've been here before. So it's not about football, it's about fighting. It's about getting, over that line. And I think they'll just have enough to beat St Mirren. Obviously, with St Mirren maybe having a bit of a hangover for this today. So, I'm like Wilson again. I'm pretty confident that they'll get it. So, fingers crossed.
I'm the same, Alan. I'm very surprised at how I thought Gary Dicker was a really, really good Kilmarnock player. And in this season, it's really just not happened for him.
Yeah.
I think he's excellent at reading the game. He's a good passer of the ball, but it's just been a wee bit flat for me.
Him and Power are too similar. And I think Power gets about the park a wee bit better. No much better, but Dicker's not getting about the park at all now.
Mm-hmm. I know. That's worrying.
Aye.
Gordon, what's your thoughts in the bottom of the league? Like,
how can you not, echo what the boys are saying about Kyle Lafferty? I mean, Kilmarnock stay up, it's the signing of the season. It has to be. I mean, look at Kevin Nisbet's had a great impact, to be fair. Kind of most of the Rangers' success has come for guys that have already been there. So St Mirren done a couple of good bits of business, but if Kelly stay up, Kyle Lafferty's played a couple of months, has got to be signing of the season. I feel like last week, the last round of fixtures has confused me because I was like, Kyle Lafferty's too good, there's too much firepower, Kelly stay up. I think he probably wasn't fit when they lose to Motherwell, the way the other results go. I keep waiting on, so you're talking about Kilmarnock St Mirren, where now St Mirren have got like literally nothing to play for. Like, it's completely over, they're out the cup. Kilmarnock have got all the incentive. Does that matter? I keep waiting on that mattering, but I thought that would happen last time. Motherwell had nothing to play for. Really, their season was over, and managed to win relatively comfortably in the end. Maybe comfortably is a bit strong. So, you know what? Hats off to us for all the stuff that we get wrong. I think this shows how good the split is. Now, I know it's not perfect. I know it throws up like wee fixture anomalies and stuff like that, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but just how exciting is this week? Imagine Celtic were playing Kilmarnock. It just wouldn't be the same. You've got these teams all needing to play each other. You're checking the other result is at half time and throughout the game, and it's brilliant. It's exciting. No, if you're a Kilmarnock fan or an Accies fan or whatever, right enough. But for us, then if you're just sitting back and watching the drama, I'm really looking forward to midweek.
My only slight worry with it is, and when Eamon Brophy left, he got a wee bit of bad press from the Kilmarnock fans, a wee bit just maybe the way it was conducted or what happened.
Back to Honey.
He come on today and he looks as if he's building up his sharpness, and I can't see him being any shrinking violet. Sorry if he scores a 90th minute winner, I don't think it'll be the respect for my old club scenario. Again, we didn't really know what happened, but it just kind of left a bitter taste, and you know what fans forums are like. But it was all very cloak and dagger, I felt, and as I say, when I'm coming on today, I thought, oh God, could he come back and bite us?
I think you're right, though, by the way. I think you're right about I think every season, I think you've got to favour the 11th team in the top flight rather than whoever comes up for the championship. But I do think particularly this season as well, I think the last time it happened was Thistle. Livy beat Thistle, didn't they, in the playoffs? And I think the only other one is when Accies beat Hibs on penalties. I think that's the only two where the championship team has done it. And Thistle, by that point, were a shambles, like an absolute shambles. And we've seen now that Livy are just Livy, aren't they? They just had momentum for like 2 seasons in a row, back-to-back promotions, kept it going. They were a bit of a freak show in a good way. And I think there's still enough to like about the 3 teams that are down there. Added to the grueling schedule that the championship teams need to get through to succeed in it. I think it's already stacked in the Premiership team's favour anyway. So I'd be pretty surprised if one of them had to swap with Dundee or Wraith.
Definitely. It's going to be a fascinating week. But I just want to thank Gordon for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on. I've really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well. Can't believe I've been slaving nonsense for that length of time.
Scott, can I just ask Alan and Gordon just one more question? I know we've discussed this. I'm looking just for a number. It's not a quiz question, Kerr, so don't panic. Right? So we'll include at the moment that John Kennedy is the Celtic manager, right? And no one's been relegated. So there's 12 SPL managers at clubs just now. Come August, how many do you think from the 12 will be the same managers? So have a wee think.
Oh,
Now,
tasty.
we had this a few months ago, and at the time, long before it actually happened, we all agreed. We thought Derek McInnes would be away in the summer. We thought that would be his last season. Scott had a wee inkling that possibly Jim Goodwin would be in for a shout to go to Aberdeen as well. So 12 matches, Gerrard, Kennedy, Jack Ross, Stephen Glass, I would like to think, so pretty safe.
Yeah.
Martindale, Goodwin, Tommy Wright, Brian Rice, etc. We'll go with those 12. How many do you think of them will be managing come August?
Actually, I think it could be 11. I think Kennedy's the only one that won't be. I think Kennedy will be the Celtic manager. The others have changed recently. So Alexander, Wright, Glass, etc. Martindale is Mr. Livy. He's not going anywhere. If County were, Brian Rice just got a new contract. If County would, I think John Hughes would at least start the season, try and bring them back up. The two you're looking at, will somebody ask Jack Ross the question? Will somebody ask Jim Goodwin? Maybe Callum Davidson, we praised him earlier.
Yeah.
So,
I would agree.
Do you think Tommy Wright would stay if Kelly were relegated?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it would.
Yeah. Pretty safe. Aye.
I've got 11 in the same position, 12 staying at the club, because I think John Kennedy will be there in some capacity.
Okay. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think he'll be there. I think there's
Chef, club chef.
I think they're needing an absolute.
I totally agree that they do. I just have this feeling that that him and Gavin Strachan are going to be kept on in some capacity. Whether it's, I know there was talk about like staying on as assistant and also director of football, which I just think would be a total. I just think that would be a total mistake.
We had a caller in who referred to Gavin Strachan as iPad boy. It just struck me as like being like the worst superhero ever, iPad boy. And I just stuck with me. I thought it was a brilliant line. And it's, again, by the way, back to what I said about like some of the perception. See if your team's winning, you don't even notice what the assistant manager has got in his hand.
Exactly.
You don't notice. You twitch on the telly, the English Premier League, they all use iPads. But see, once you're losing, what the fuck are you doing with that iPad? It's funny. That's the way we work, isn't it?
What do you think, Wilson? Do you think John Kennedy will be there in some capacity? Obviously, I know you don't want him to be because you've been saying that since October. But what do you think? Do you think it could be like?
Again, there's so many theories going about. Has Eddie Howe been offered the job and he's been told he has to keep Kennedy and Strachan? That's why there's a delay. Again, I must admit, John Kennedy's been part of the recent success. Unfortunately, this season I don't think. Well, it's a failure, of course it is, but it's a 38 point or 41 point swing. It's not like they've won the league by 18 points last year and they've lost the league by 3 points this year. So top to bottom, you've seen Lowell go, you've seen Nicky Hammond go, you've seen Lennon go. Then I don't get what part of the puzzle these guys can stay, because the whole thing needs cleared out, as Alan said.
I can't get my head around this, right? See if Celtic come knocking on your door, do you not bite their hand off, regardless of what's went on and how much money you're going to have to spend? It's a top club we're talking about here. You bite the hand off, as far as I'm concerned. Why is it taking him, if it is him, Eddie Howe, why is it taking so long? If I'm a Celtic fan and I'm season ticket holder and all that, and I've spoke to Celtic fans, I've been in a group chat and that, and surely it's went a length of time now. You say, right, do one. If you've not given me an answer, do one. Get somebody else. And I know who is that other person. I don't know, but the length of time it's not on, really.
Again, I think it might have been on Superscoreboard. They heard the caller, and I think the caller thought that the person that Celtic want is possibly still in his job, and his contract with that club does not end until, say, the 30th of May, and Celtic are waiting until then. Eddie Howe could be the biggest bluff that we've had. I know the press reports, and God, you'll have inside information, I'm sure. It's maybe pretty much him, but I don't get this, as you say. I don't think Steven Gerrard kind of said, right, okay, I'll come to the club, but I want Archie Knox there, and I'll just keep the boys that are there. Gerrard
Give me a to think about it, aye.
exactly. Gerrard's went, I'll take your job, but I want Gary McAllister, Michael Beale, my doctor, my physio, my brain surgeon, whoever I need, and then I'll take your job. And Rangers went, right, okay, done.
It's certainly
the same, Alan. You go in and say, right, Alan, we'd like you to be the Kilmarnock manager. Do you want to pick your own background team, or do you want to take what's there?
I just take it, and then you deal with that. Oh.
I mean, one of them's Marco. and Guy White.
No, I leave it. I don't touch it.
Gordon, what's your thoughts on it? Like, obviously, do you think it's going to be Eddie Howe?
Yeah, purely because there is just absolutely no other name.
It's been bandied about.
Yeah, that's the kind of
thing. And I think it has to be. I think that's not to say it's definitely going to happen, but I don't think we're at the stage, because we're still, Friday night it kind of comes back up again, and we're still getting folks saying, what about Jack Ross for the job, or what about Stevie Clark for the job? I think for whatever reason it's taking too long. I think everybody can agree it's too long, right? Yeah. Champions League qualifiers are around the corner. There may well be what Celtic feel is a innocent explanation that, trying to get different pieces in place and whatever it may be, and whether it's staff who are trying to come from Bournemouth, and I don't really know whether it's that sort of stuff that you hear. I think everybody can agree it's taking too long, but that for some reason that doesn't make me think it's not going to be Eddie Howe. I just see if Celtic thought that Eddie Howe was going to had slipped through their fingers or was going to. I feel like they would need to be doing more to get that out there. Because see if it's not him now, it's going to look embarrassing, isn't it? I keep saying it, perception is everything. If Eddie Howe is not the Celtic manager, everybody's going to say, "Oh my God, that he was your guy, and you couldn't even land him."
Yeah.
So see if they still weren't confident of getting him. I feel like they would have to be putting stuff out there in the background to newspapers, to media or whatever, and trying to sort of throw them off the Eddie Howe scent. I feel it's one of the strangest. They always call it a saga. It's one of the strangest ones I can remember, where I can't believe it's taken this long, but I also still really think it's going to be him. And I don't know how those two thoughts can coexist, but here we are.
Definitely. But it's been an absolute pleasure to do this show, Gordon. Thanks very much for coming on. We've loved having you.
Thanks for having me anytime.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Wilson, Kerr, pleasure as always.
Thanks
very much, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers, bye.